Damien visits a gang boss in a hidden warehouse to get his share of illegal merchandise to sell. Damien's acting is too twitchy, so the boss pulls him aside to explain that he's heard there's a snitch in the gang. And when Damien plays the innocent, the boss admits he knows Damien is an undercover cop. When Damien is apprehended, he pulls out his gun and begins defending himself against the oncoming thugs with both bullets and martial arts. Damien steps back after beating up a group that attacks him together, and he doesn't see a car coming, so he gets hit pretty hard. Fortunately, he is still conscious and goes after the boss to arrest him, only to learn that when the gang discovered Damien's true identity, they also discovered the existence of his wife. Damien runs back to his house, terrified by the implications, but it's too late. His wife has died. Years later, Shyman is preparing to begin another class at the local high school when he notices a student is missing for the second time in a row. The other teens explain that this boy has succumbed to addiction, and Amelia, who used to be addicted herself, tried to persuade him to see reason, but she was ignored. Shyman's son Camel receives a phone call from the missing boy's mother, informing him that the student has been found dead. This isn't the first time something like this has occurred at this school. The institution has a serious problem with illegal merchandise being sold on its grounds. Tired of losing students to addiction, Shyman calls his best friend Damien for assistance, but Damien lets the message go to voicemail because he isn't doing so well himself. Since he lost his wife, he has become overly reliant on alcohol, and he was fired from the police force. He is now nothing more than a drunkard. When night falls, Damien decides to gather his wits and pay Shyman a visit to hear him out. While Camel overhears from the hallway, Shyman tells him about the school's problems, but Damien refuses to help, explaining that he can't even help himself. Damien then goes to a store to get more alcohol, where three thugs attempt to steal his wallet. Damien asks calmly at first, but because they don't take him seriously, he immediately beats them up by grabbing items from around the store. Another shopper is irritated by the commotion and offers Damien a bottle of whiskey to persuade him to leave quickly. Meanwhile, Shyman goes to a warehouse at an address mentioned by one of the kids, but as soon as he gets to the door, he's caught red-handed. The next morning, Damien awakens to the heartbreaking news that Shyman has been found dead in the warehouse. Because of his position, the police believe he was the one behind the operation, and that he finished things himself out of guilt over the death of his student. Damien suspects his friend is being framed and goes to Shyman's house to investigate, ignoring all of the reporters on the street. He gets to enter because he still has a few cop buddies, and he gets to console Shyman's wife, assuring her that she is correct in believing her husband was framed. When a detective mocks Camel for having a criminal father, Camel attempts to attack him, forcing Damien to intervene and explain that he's just a teenager in shock to keep him from being arrested. Later, Damien decides he needs to clear his best friend's name and contacts a shady friend to obtain fake papers. Then he goes to the school and pretends to be a teacher who has come for an interview to replace Shyman, which starts awkwardly when the secretary warns him not to apply because the school is too dangerous. Their conversation is cut short by Principal Lesek, who hires Damien because he is the only applicant, and assures him that he will be safe because he has hired a security team. He also requests his deputy, Agata, who will be in charge of showing Damien around the facility when he starts work tomorrow. The next day, Damien arrives at school and notices Jero taking flowers from the memorial for the deceased student, so he attempts to make him return them. Jero is upset and orders his gangmate Mammoth to beat Damien up, but Mammoth is still a shy boy under social pressure and barely moves. Before things get out of hand, security leader C.H. Mielski arrives with his men and takes the teens to the principal's office. He also wants to confront Damien, but Agata comes to his aid and informs him that he is the new teacher. After that, Agata shows him around and introduces him to their coworkers, including chemistry teacher Stefan, before taking him to meet his class, despite the fact that Camel isn't returning to school yet because he needs time to grieve. The class is quite rowdy, but Damien quickly puts them in their place by taking a student's phone and refusing to fall for their taunts. Frogface, on the other hand, continues to bother a classmate and ignore Damien's warnings until Damien is forced to kick him out. Frogface refuses to leave, so Agata dispatches C.H. Mielski to accompany him. Frogface threatens to meet Agata later on his way out. At the end of the day, Agata is in the parking lot when she is approached by Frogface and his gangmates, who have stolen her car keys and are now looking for revenge. Someone has slashed Damien's tires nearby, and another teacher offers to drive him home. As soon as they enter the parking lot, they notice Agata in danger, and Damien rushes to her aid, easily dispatching all of the thugs, even if one of them carries a weapon. Damien does sustain a wound on his hand, but it is insufficient to deter him, and Frogface flees in terror. Agata drags Damien back into the school to bandage his hand and question him about his past, so Damien teaches her how to defend herself if a criminal grabs her. Meanwhile, the thugs take Frogface to see Jero, one of many students who sell illegal merchandise at school on the orders of a mysterious man on a bike. When the guy comes closer and takes off his helmet, he reveals to be Mielski, whose security company is an excuse to have his men on campus. Jero and Mielski are both angry because Frogface owes them money and was arrested for it, wishing to retaliate against Agata, implying that a beating is in order. Jero asks Mammoth to do it so he can finally overcome his shyness and become a true member of the gang, which he is only joining because he wants to belong somewhere. Damien arrives at school the next morning to find his car being towed. Everyone in the teacher's room is looking at the security cameras, celebrating Damien's victory, and Lester says he'll pay for the towing and new tires as a thank you. Mielski is skeptical of Damien's ability as a fighter, but Damien maintains that he is only a teacher. Damien then returns to the classroom, only to discover that the security footage has been leaked, and all of the students are now watching it as well. They're overjoyed to have him as a teacher and continue to bombard him with questions, including requests for advice on how to defend themselves. Damien is amused by the idea and takes the class to the gym, offering a deal. If they can beat him, there will be no final exam. They obviously don't get to land even one hit, but they have fun, and during the encounter, Damien notices Camel come to watch only to leave when he realizes who the teacher is. Damien follows Camel to the changing room to explain that he's here to find clues and prove Shyman's innocence, but Camel reacts by leaping on him, enraged that Damien failed to help his father when he needed him the most. Damien agrees, surprising Camel, and explains that he feels responsible for Shyman's death. It's too late to save him, but he wants to save the students. So Camel agrees to keep the secret. Damien's car is in perfect condition by the end of the day, and he invites Agata out for a drink. They have a lot of fun together at a bar, but things become tense when Damien notices some men hurling slurs at two in-love girls. Damien steps in to defend them, and when the men refuse to back down, another fight ensues. Damien plays with these guys instead of beating them quickly because they are so drunk, which makes Agata smile. Following that, Agata invites Damien to her home, where they arrive already kissing. Damien is hit by a wave of memories of his wife, showing the sweet moments and the disturbing end. When Agata goes to the kitchen to get some wine, Damien decides he can't do it right now and walks out without saying anything, leaving Agata to draw the worst possible conclusions. Damien sees Mammoth selling merch on his way home and uses the opportunity to scold him, reminding him that he has a brain and doesn't belong in a gang. Damien also tries to gather information. However, Mammoth explains that he is unable to speak before fleeing. Amelia later sees one of her friends buying merch and tries to warn her against it because she knows how bad it can be. Jero abruptly interrupts the conversation and dispatches his men to capture Amelia, prompting Camel to arrive to save her. Unfortunately, he lacks fighting skills, and the gang members quickly beat him up. Jero then uses him as an example of what will happen to anyone who dares to intervene in the future. When Damien arrives at school, Agata treats him with cold professionalism rather than the camaraderie he experienced the night before. Damien finds Camel's face all black and blue when class begins, but the teen only says he fell, and no one dares to snitch on Jero. Damien chastises them for failing to defend themselves, but the students remind him that they don't know how. Damien, determined to assist them, invites the group to his old dojo after class. The facility is in desperate need of renovations, which almost convinces the students to leave, but Camel offers his assistance, which encourages everyone to stay. With everyone's help, the dojo is cleaned in a matter of days, and Damien goes above and beyond to teach everyone his best moves, delighting in how quickly they learn. He continues to teach history at school and attempts to connect with Agata, but she still treats him as a coworker and refuses to hang out with him. In his spare time, Damien follows some of the gang members to see where they leave their merch and gets the chance to call the cops on them. Now the law has confiscated all of that merch. Damien is pleased with himself for this accomplishment, but he is unaware that Mielski is also watching him. Jero and the others agree at the next gang party that they must do something about Damien. After the most recent training session, Damien returns to the dojo to train alone when he is approached by a group of men wearing ski masks. They're armed with sticks and better fighters than the average street thug, but Damien still manages to beat them all, despite being sore and bleeding by the end. Damien notices Mielski's security team displaying some serious wounds the next morning at school, and realizes they're part of the gang, but for now Damien only teases Mielski without showing off his hand. Mielski is enraged that they are being used so easily, but Jero assures him that he has a solution. Jero and the gang pay Amelia's father a visit after class, claiming they need to repair an old watch they stole from Shyman the night he was murdered. The poor man does not want any trouble and asks them to leave, but Amelia appears just as Jero is about to become violent. After escorting her father to another room, she confronts Jero, who grabs her by the hair and demands she cooperate if she does not want to lose her father. Damien arrives at school the next day to find everyone in a bad mood. Lesser has fired him after Amelia accused him of taking advantage of her in the dojo. Agata and the students no longer trust him, and as the security team leads Damien out of the building, Camel follows him to insult him for duping him into thinking he was a good guy. Damien does not respond because he knows his word will not be trusted. Meanwhile, Amelia is overcome with guilt and relapses into her old addiction. Damien pays her a visit in the evening to try to figure out what happened, and Amelia explains the threat against her father. Damien feels guilty about this as well and takes the merchandise from her, but before he can do anything else, Amelia's father arrives and kicks Damien out. Following that, Damien pays a visit to Frogface in the hospital in an attempt to persuade him to cooperate by showing him his own reflection, implying that he has already been abandoned by his gang. Finally, Frogface admits that they don't bring merch into the school from outside, but rather make it inside the school's labs. Damien rushes to see Agata, intending to share this huge clue, but Agata still refuses to see him and kicks him out. Damien steals her school keys while she is turning around to call the police because she has access to the entire building. Damien discovers that the security guards are still present at the school and must sneak around carefully, hiding in a closet when necessary, to avoid being seen. Once the guards are gone, he sneaks into the chemistry lab, where he discovers evidence that the merchandise is being manufactured there. Damien hears some footsteps and hides just in time to see Stefan walk in, because it turns out he's in charge of the cooking. Fortunately, Stefan leaves quickly to assist the security men in loading the van, allowing Damien to take a few pictures of what's going on before getting into his car and following the van. When Damien arrives at the warehouse, the van has already been emptied, and he is attacked by the security team, whom he easily defeats by stealing their taser and using it against them. He then calls Agata and leaves a message on her voicemail explaining everything. The next day, Damien shows Agata and Lester the photos, who point out that they are blurry and not good evidence. Damien did not go to the police because of this. When Lester calls Stefan and Ch. Mielski to inquire, Stefan simply states that he worked late on an experiment for class and that the security team assisted him in cleaning up. Ch. Mielski insists that Shyman is the real dealer, and Damien falls for the bait, but the guards intervene before he becomes violent. Damien is evicted, but Agata remains suspicious, so she visits Amelia, whose guilt compels her to confess everything. Later, Damien gains access to the school security cameras and discovers that all footage of the merch being moved has been deleted. Damien starts drinking when he realizes he's losing control of the case, and only stops when Agata comes by to apologize for not believing him. Damien finally tells her his entire story, and Agata kisses him to comfort him before agreeing to help. The duo then pays a visit to Stefan to demand answers, but Stefan refuses to give them any names, instead explaining that he's cooking for a gang because they threatened to kill his wife. Ch. Mielski appears on his motorcycle and shoots Stefan, but he only gives Damien a dirty look before driving away. Lesek asks Agata to clean Stefan's locker the next day at school while he meets with Amelia, who has come to confess. Agata is surprised to discover a hidden notebook with notes about the merchandise in Stefan's locker and keeps it for herself. After a few hours, Camel and the other students go to the dojo to apologize to Damien for telling them the truth. The happy reunion is abruptly cut short by a phone call from Agata, who informs them that Amelia was attacked and is now in a coma. When the group arrives at the hospital, Agata shows Damien the notebook, which contains a map of the warehouse and information on where to find the hidden merchandise. Later that night, Damien makes his way to the warehouse, unaware that Ch. Mielski is still watching him. When Damien arrives, he immediately knocks out the first guard he sees before turning around and being startled by Agata, who has come to help. They easily find the merch using the map from the notebook, but soon they are surrounded by Ch. Mielski, Jero, the gang, and one huge surprise. The actual leader behind the operation is Lesek, who has given up on the current generation because they don't care about their studies. Lesek mocks Damien by showing him Shyman's watch, but the conversation is cut short by Mammoth, who has realized his error and brought the entire class with him. A fight breaks out between the two teams, and Damien watches proudly as his students beat up the gang, including Jero. Damien pursues Ch. Mielski as he flees, starting a fight with both of them armed. Damien is winning, so Ch. Mielski rips some wires from the wall in an attempt to electrocute him, but Damien disarms him with a kick. Damien pushes Ch. Mielski against the wires and electrocutes him to death when Camel appears and distracts him. Damien doesn't care that the principal has a gun, and he hits him anyway, instantly releasing Agata. As soon as they turn around, Lesek shows that he is still conscious and pulls another gun from his sock, but before he can shoot, Camel throws a container of toys on top of him, effectively killing him. Damien takes advantage of the opportunity to recover Shyman's watch and gives it to Camel as a memorial to his father as they wait for the police and ambulances to arrive to take care of all the young heroes.